Here we are again. Here we are
Yes,
again,
we are.
Another week has gone, and we are back with our live. Good afternoon, and welcome to anyone who's watching it live, and to those who may watch it on replay. Evie, as always, great to be with you today.
As always, Bon. It's been
Yes,
great to see you
always
and
good
spend some
thing.
time here.
Yes, yeah. So today we're really kind of looking at our saboteurs and how they can stop us from doing some of the things that we really want to do, or that we're just contemplating, but the saboteur will jump in and provide you with a million reasons why that is not a good idea. And I think it's really worth doing this because last week we spoke about rebranding, and we're talking about our new community that will be starting in the new year. And we know, and I'm going to talk from personal experience, what it's like to feel resistance come up. It's almost like, oh, that sounds really exciting. And that's that immediate sense. And then, of course, you kind of sit down and in comes the judge and the other saboteurs, and they pour water on all of that joy that you were feeling in that moment. And I think it's important to address it because we know that it happens, and understand that it's okay to say no to something. It's understanding, am I doing this from a place of discernment? Have I, is it that this really just isn't right for me, or this isn't the right time for me, and I know this? Or am I being pushed into thinking that this is not right for me? And it can be quite subtle because, of course, our saboteurs have been working really hard for really long, and so when they're saying it just feels like us. It feels like the normal thing that we do. But I just feel we need to question that. What's your take on that, Evie?
Definitely. Well, usually the resistance comes from past experiences. And, when you have past experiences that you've done something and you didn't follow through, or you went for something and it wasn't what you thought it would be. And all this becomes like your evidence of like nothing works. But the problem is that there are things that do work, and they would help you flourish, thrive, do the things that you want to do. And if you just keep looking at your past results and the past evidence, then you're missing out. And that is the issue here. So I strongly believe in examining things, and as you said, Yvonne, with discernment and making sure that you have thought through why you would like to be in a community or why not, and check with yourself how does that sit in your gut. And I think that's the way to do it. Personally, I have had, as you, a lot of experience with good and bad outcomes. And, both of this, at the end of the day, were good for me and for where I am right now. So I wouldn't judge it. But then again, we're doing the work. So we know not to judge.
And we also know there is no good and bad. It's a situation from which we look for the gifts and the opportunities. And I think that's really important. I know certainly from my own experience, again, if I were to think, here's a community, it sounds great, it sounds like that really resonates with me, and then I flip back into the past, I'm going to see a mix of communities I've been in that were great, that felt great, that I know that I took stuff from, and then there are going to be some that I can think of. I think, what was I thinking? But I also understand that a lot of that messaging that comes up in that moment is my judge. It's my judge. Like, oh, for goodness sakes, you did that before, and look what happened. What was it? Your time, your money? What did you get? Nothing. However, when I go back and I'm looking at it with my sage, and my sage doesn't really want to go back. It's about what do you need right now. But even if I were to look at it through my sage lens, it would be really saying, even the communities where you felt you didn't need to go to, or perhaps you shouldn't have stayed there as long, or any of those things that come up, what did you take away? Because I don't think there's a community I've ever been in that I haven't taken something away.
Absolutely.
It may be one nugget, it may be one thing, and then I just think, well, actually, yeah, because that nugget that I took away from that has helped me do X, Y, and Z. So I think we have to be kind of really careful about how we kind of examine those past experiences, as you have rightly said, Evie. And I know for me, whenever I'm thinking about joining anything, my judge is just like, oh, hello, let's have a little conversation about this, because you remember the last time when you did, da, 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 and is already in a position where it wants to tell me about what didn't go right for me, or actually how the community didn't really show up for me, or it'll take me through all of those things. And the thing is, when you're on your own and those thoughts are coming up, it can really kind of fill you with dread and really kind of water down any hope that you had prior to allowing that thought pattern to kick in. And of course, as is the case with saboteurs, once the judge is out of its cage, it's going to go and find your other saboteurs to, intensify those feelings. And I'm always just so aware of that now, that whenever I feel any resistance to something coming up now, I kind of just sit back with it and think, okay, here's my judge, right? Okay, let that play out. Okay. Oh, look who's come. Oh, the avoider's coming out to play. And I kind of almost like sit back and watch it, because it's just so it's really it's fascinating, because it's, being able to do that is so much more powerful than being in it, caught up in it, and thinking this is me, thinking and doing all of these things. But I just know that there's a better way to approach when we are decision making. And of course, that's through the sage wisdom, the wisdom of the sage. And so as we think of that, what do you think, what are important things for people to consider, Evie, then, if they're even thinking about our community or any other community?
Well, I think any community that comes your way, it has come your way for a reason, and it is important to check why. It might be a good fit for you, and I mean, for us, and like, we have decided to have this community because it's a community we would like to be in. I definitely would like to be in a community like that. And that's the reason why we are not just saying, okay, everybody can come in, because we want to ensure that we can serve, and everybody that is in there takes the best out of that community. So it's not just about the members of the community, it's about the hosts of the community, but also, as you said, Yvonne, you need to sit with it. You need to, what we used to say, like, sleep on it, see how it feels, play with, the idea, and don't just let your saboteurs stop you from getting any type of thinking towards being part of a community. But every community is not the same, of course, and every community does something for you. So that is what you need to start thinking. Okay, it's not just about the community, it's about the outcome. It's about, what do you want to get out of it? What do you want to put into it as well?
Yes.
So it's not just about you sitting back and say, oh, okay, I'll take. It's about you being part of something bigger. And I think that's what excites me. It's like really making the difference. And it's not just as a host, as a part, like anything, anyone in this community. I hope that, is going to be really creating something big and being part of something big, because that's what we want. So
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that. It's not just about the take, it's about the give. It's what are you putting into it? And I think this is where it gets quite potent, because when you understand the value that you have and that you can bring to a community, it's not then, oh, I'm joining it because I want this, this, and this. I'm joining it because, yes, I do want this, but I also want to put in because somebody may need this thing, this word of wisdom, or this resource, or this knowledge or skill that I have. And I want to be able to ensure that I can put something in the pot, because that is where the magic really happens. And
absolutely.
so I think when we're looking through communities and joining or even thinking about it, that we have to think about the possibilities, not the fear. So the saboteurs are always going to bring up the fear of, well, what if I join and they don't like me? What if I don't fit in? What if I've made a mistake? All of that stuff will come up through the saboteurs. They will just put you into that state of, nervous systems jangling and, oh my goodness, I don't want to do this. Step away. Whereas in the sage wisdom, what are the possibilities? If I joined this community, what might that look like for me? If this is how they're saying, they're positioning it and how they may help me, what might I be able to get out of it? What tangible difference might it make in my life? And what tangible difference might I make in somebody else's life by being in the community? So knowing that when you're thinking about it, are you really thinking about possibilities, or is everything just coming from the fear state? Because that really helps you to understand who's running the thinking show in that moment. And I think also with sage wisdom that it will encourage you to think from a place of calm. It will encourage you to be curious. It will be seeking some sort of clarity. Like, if I can clarify one thing that I might get from being here, then maybe it's just worth me trying, giving it a go, exploring, right? Because all of these things are those sage possibilities. And who knows? Who knows what might happen? So there are all of these things to consider. Am I looking at possibilities? Am I looking at this in a state of calm, in a place that allows me to really kind of have an exploration without any fear or pressure? And also that the sage will empower you to want to rewrite those scripts that are telling you, no, it's not going to work. You're not enough. What have you got to offer? Who wants to listen to you? Why do you want to listen to them? All of that stuff that comes up. The sage is like not wanting you to react to all of that, and instead to sit back and then respond from a place of clarity for you.
Absolutely. And, there is one question that I tend to ask all the time whenever I choose to do pretty much anything. And that's like, what's the worst that can happen? Because, when you are on that edge of like, do I do it? I don't do it. If you you really have that discussion with yourself and say, what's the worst that can happen? And you take it seriously. I mean, for serious decisions, let me tell you, I would sit and write pros and cons, and I would probably sleep on things and make sure that I have at least made a decision quickly enough. I'm not delaying and till forever, because then there's no point. But at least it's an educated decision from my part, and that is a question that has helped me a lot. Because most of the time, the worst that we think is not going to happen. And the other thing is, if you really have thought about the worst, it means that you have really took steps in case that happens. How are you going to deal with it? Or you're not deciding that, and then you have mitigated the worst from the start, and that's it. So
Absolutely.
I think this is the case
Yeah.
with, like joining any programs or any communities, or doing anything else for that
Yes.
matter,
Yeah.
in your
It's,
everyday life.
it's a powerful question. Really simple. What is the worst that could happen? And one of the beautiful things about our community, and I'm sure many other communities, most of them you can go into, and guess what? If it doesn't fit, if it doesn't feel the way that you had hoped, wanted, you can leave. You're not chained to it in any shape or form. However, stepping into it gives you an opportunity to explore. And some of the reasons why it's worth doing that, stepping in and exploring, is because in community, so this is really about the power of community. In community, you get to grow beyond the restrictions, what I perceive as restrictions of isolation. And so when we are doing things on our own, and trust me, I have done this so many times, it's just ridiculous. I'm just going to crack on, I'm going to get things done, I know what I'm doing, head in the game, and you get things done. And I'm not saying that there's not power in that, but imagine getting things done with the support and the encouragement and the wisdom of other, in this case, or in our community, women who really want to see you succeed at whatever it is you're doing, and who may have thoughts, resources, skills, and knowledge to help you to do that. That is such a powerful experience. And I have had to learn the hard way. I was so hard-headed about being able to do stuff on my own. So of course, yes, stuff got done, but it probably took me 2 times, maybe even 3 times longer than it needed to, had I put myself in the right communities that showed up along the way, and that I allowed my judge to tell me I didn't need, they weren't going to make a difference, etc., etc. All of those voices, I've heard them all. I've heard all the excuses. I've used all the excuses, so I'm pretty au fait with what comes up.
I really, can concur with this, because I mean, or echo it, because having like a strong controller saboteur, I really, have hard time being a team player, or that's what it was, the case. And it wasn't that I didn't like working with others. It was that I can do things better, or that's what I thought. And the thing is that when you get into that like state of mind, your horizons become so small, and also everything becomes a chore, everything becomes a hard thing, because you need to learn everything. And how can you learn everything? The only thing you can do is just get overwhelmed and give up, because nobody's there to support, nobody's there to help. And in some cases also, most of us, especially in this area of work, we have a lot of voices outside ourselves that are naysayers in so many ways, that they're not supportive of the work that we do, or they don't understand the work we do. So it's not about, okay, somebody saying, yeah, all right, I'm with you, whatever you decide, you go for it, you do it. That's one thing. But it's a different thing when somebody says, I got you, because I know exactly where you're going from, where you're coming from. I know exactly where you want to go, and I'm going to cheer you on all the way, because that gives you the sense of belonging, the accountability, as you said, resources that you wouldn't have if you were doing it alone. And nowadays, it's so much to learn. I mean, so much to learn. Like every
Can you?
single day. I mean, I I could start a new course, for goodness sakes, because I need to be like current, but you
Yes,
don't really need to be all these things. You just need to be surrounded by the right people. And that's the thing. It's like, where are you, placing yourself in
yes,
order to get where you want to be? That's the
yes,
difference.
yeah. And something you said there about, like for me, the other thing about being in community is that you have accountability. Because here's that thing, if you're doing it all on your own and you're trying to be accountable for yourself, listen, you can talk yourself out of doing anything. And interesting when you were saying, Evie, about, going it on your own, and that kind of, like for me, like my restless would so easily like destroy anything that I was doing, because it was just like, this feels hard now, this feels sticky, this feels, let's go off and do something else, and off I would go. And so this very thing where I needed to stay grounded and work with has now lost, I've now lost the momentum. And so
Yeah.
for me, when you're in a community, it's just like, we're going to hold the space for you, and we're going to help you get through the things that you need to get through. We're going to help you have the breakthroughs that you want to have, and help you create, because for me this is about create the life that you want to have, where your
Absolutely.
health, where your career, relationships, all of these things are nurtured. And when you've got people who have got your back as you're doing these things, it is a whole other world. It is a completely different experience. And that's really what we want to offer up in Permission to Thrive. And I guess, having said that, Evie, I'm going to hand back to you. Perhaps just speak a little bit on Permission to Thrive. What exactly is it that we are offering in Permission to Thrive?
Well, I want to see, like, I have this visual in my head with regards permission to thrive, of somebody being at the bottom of a mountain looking up, and starting by themselves, climbing up and finding it really hard. And then all of a sudden, people behind them start pushing them on forward until they are at the top of the hill. And it's not just the person in the front, but like everybody else, because they're all helping each other move up that hill. And to me, that's what community is all about. It's like being able to stand on other people's shoulders, that they have done things, and it doesn't have to be things that, like, they are 10 steps ahead of you. Even if
Mm,
somebody is like one step ahead of you, they
yeah.
have things to teach you, they have things to share. And that's how this will work in my mind. I'm hoping that the women that will be in this community is they have the vision that we do, and I'm sure they will, because we're going to really spend time understanding that
Yes.
before anyone gets in the community. And that they will have the opportunity to um, have discussions and put their own heart in this community, and make sure that everybody else is held and is listened to, and we all together move forward. So this
Yes.
is I think that the vision, or what I really hope to achieve. And I know we've discussed this, and
Yeah.
you are exactly thinking the
Yes.
same thing. Now,
Absolutely.
the practical stuff is about, we don't want to inundate people with information and things to do and all these things, because also we know that there are communities that you get in there and you become even more overwhelmed than what you were before you went, because there's so much. So we're going to leave that a little bit fluid, so we can hear what it is that you want to achieve. And with that in mind, we're going to start creating things for the community. Of course, there is going to be some structure for that we can put together. We have put together, but that is going to work around, I think, everybody's everybody's day as and when they want. So that's it. I'm not sure if I covered what you had in mind on, but
No, that's absolutely great. This is input. So I think that what I would add to that is, what are we focusing on? Well, we take a kind of whole life approach, understanding that there are sort of three key areas or elements which are productivity. So how you want to show up in your career, in your business, how do you kind of get to where you want to get to, with support to do so, with a safe space where you can share anything that's coming up for you, whether it's the fears or excitement, but really have that space. The next one is your health, your self-care. How are you looking after your body? Because for me, it's always going to come back to self-care. I'm always going to be the one that's going to say, yeah, you want to do all of this wonderful, brilliant stuff. You've got this, and we've got you. What are you doing to ensure that you are energized and replenished and ready to go to do that stuff? Because that is important. And sometimes it gets forgotten because there are a million other things that need to happen. So that will be a key part in the community. And of course, also how we build relationships. Because again, like a community, in the community and outside of it, we want to have connections that matter. We want to have connections that help us, one, get to where we want to go, but also to be well and to stay well, and to have that kind of ongoing support. So for me, relationship building is very much around communication. So there's some of that work that will come up and through, and like you said, Evie, this is about spaciousness. So we've all got a lot going on. The vast majority of us have got a lot going on. So we want to have a community where, yes, there are resources. Yes, there are conversations, because this is about bringing your voice to the table so that we can talk about things and share
absolutely.
things. Yes, there are practical tools. However, how you access them and when you do a lot of those things will be for you to decide. We will be encouraging you to access them, though, and not to let them all slide in the midst of a million other things that you've put on your to-do list or that are on your to-do list. And for me, that sometimes is the piece that is missing when you're working for yourself or with yourself or whatever. When you're doing stuff on your own, is you can have a bad minute, a bad day, a bad moment, and go completely off track. You can just go completely off track and suddenly feel like, I've wasted all this time, I've wasted all this energy, why am I doing this? And when you're in community, I just feel like you get held. It's like, it's okay. So you had a week that went pear-shaped. Okay, let's come back in. Let's talk that out. If you want to release some of that stuff, yes, we want to hear you. We want to let you release that so that you can let it go. And then, okay, so how can we now help you, support you? What words, what resource do you need to get back on track to where you're heading? And that for me is gold, because I know when I have been in that headstrong, I'm doing this, I'm doing it on my own, I didn't have it. But that was down to me. That was the choice that I made. And I don't want other women to keep on making those choices, because it may feel brave and bold to go off and do everything on your own, but actually a lot of the time it's just exhausting. It's just exhausting, and we don't have to be exhausted.
And it's not only that it's exhausting, you feel very isolated because you have the misconception that nobody else is going through that. And then you go around, and let's face it, most of the times when we are in like a bad space, we might end up scrolling media, social media and stuff, and seeing everybody's success and start comparing. And then let me not tell you what the saboteurs are doing to our heads. And it takes us so much longer to get back to the headspace of creativity and of moving forward. And I have seen it with women that I work all the time. When they come back to me and say, well, I mean, look at all this success out there. How am I going to make it? This is really not going to happen. And you need to bring them back to the reality that these are the reels of somebody's life and not the backstage. And it needs to be, you don't need to compare apples and pears. You need to take a step back and potentially, as Yvonne said, be held and, have these conversations with people that understand you, but also are going through very similar stuff, maybe on different levels, maybe on different times. It doesn't matter. And that's the wisdom of the community. That's why communities are the things that really have worked for thousands of years. I mean,
Yes.
otherwise we would all be like just each one on our own with a spear. I don't know. I mean, something, and walking around trying to see what we're going to do. I don't know. I mean, it didn't happen like that. So
Yeah.
there is value to the community, and to have being in a community of like-minded people and moving
Absolutely.
forward faster.
Absolutely. And interestingly, when you were saying that, what made me laugh was there's a documentary, I think, on Netflix at the moment that talks about community and why communities started and why they are necessary and why they are kind of flourishing. Because ultimately, although I hear some people say, I'm a lone wolf, I like to just do things all on my own, I'm like, there are times when that probably makes sense. But there are probably also times when that feels really uncomfortable, and when you
Absolutely.
need that second pair of eyes, or you need some words of wisdom, or you need something, but you've cut yourself off so much. Goes back to the isolation thing, that you don't know who to turn to or where to go to for that. And I would say that we can have our moments of being lone wolves. Listen, there's nothing I love more than going off into nature on my own and being on my own. But that's a state of being that I just calls me. That would not help me every single day, all day long, when I want to move forward with my life, with the way that my life is and the quality of my life. So, yeah, I think we need to kind of really open our hearts and minds and our souls to what community can be, and actually, again, as I said at the beginning, really look at the possibilities. What is possible for me by being in a community, as opposed to, oh my goodness, if I go into a community, they're going to tell me how to do it. They're going to tell me and show me and da da da, and I don't want that. It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, any final words from you, Evie?
Join us. We can make a difference together. That's the whole point.
Yes.
It's not about us, Yvonne and I and our community. It's about all of us together. All of us doing things, coming together with the same vision, and holding space for each other, and creating role models for our daughters, for the younger girls that are coming after us, and making sure that they will have it a little bit easier, or a little bit more figured out.
Yes. Or a lot more. We're up for
Yeah,
that too.
absolutely. So yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. And so with that, all I'm going to say is at the end of this, you will see QR codes come up. It's an opportunity for you to just go have a little snippet video to find out a little bit more, and it really is very brief, and then have the opportunity to book an appointment, a call with either myself or Evie, just a discovery call, no pressure, just so that you can have any questions answered that you may have around the community, and that we can also give you a little bit more information than we are kind of sharing here, because we're kind of keeping these relatively generic, but really looking at what might be coming up for people, and really kind of saying, and that's okay if that stuff is coming up. It's okay. It's normal, right?
Absolutely.
But it doesn't have to stop you from looking a little bit deeper and then coming up with a yes or a no that is coming from a place of wisdom, not fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we want for you. So I'm just going to say thank you so much if you've joined us live. Thank you so much if you're watching this on replay. Evie, as always, thank you so much for being here with
Thank you, Yvonne. Looking
Absolutely.
forward to coming together in the new year.
Absolutely. Until then, take care.